The moderator for this session is Gianluca Rubagotti. Gianluca Rubagotti is a career Italian diplomat who is presently the Consul of Italy in Karachi. Prior to his present assignment, he served as the Deputy Head of Mission both in Sri Lanka and in Singapore. Under his guidance, the Consulate of Italy in Karachi has launched, together with the Italian publishing house Metropoli di Asia, the Italy Reads Pakistan Award at the Karachi Literature Festival 2016, with a view to publishing in Italian language a novel written by a Pakistani author. Gianluca, over to you.
Thank you. What a great you can see. In fact, I don't really know what I have to do here. I'm supposed to be a moderator, and nobody mentioned that there is an empty chair here. Why? The empty chair is not because there is a political dissident who is being entertained for the moment by the security apparatus of the state. The empty chair is for the winner of this award. We have launched last year the award, those of you who may remember, during the KLF. And to be very honest, I went and visited Amina even 6 months before starting my assignment, my posting here in Karachi. I came, if you remember, Amina, it was June 2015. Yes. You were one of the first persons that I wanted to meet, even before starting officially my tenure here. I came to you, to Oxford University Press, and I launched this idea to you. I said, why don't we try to create something which can help us to put together people of our two countries? And I have to say that, of course, you were very receptive about this idea, and we have started working on it. Last year, we have defined it, this award, as a journey, because, as I'm telling you now, we started working on it. It's in June. It will be 2 years already, and we are not there at the final destination, because, as I said, the final destination will be the homes of the Italian people. But first of all, Amina, we have seen yesterday a number of prizes and awards given out at the KLF. Now we have also this Italy Reads Pakistan Award. In your opinion, do these awards still have a sense? What is their purpose? Is it just to please the crowd? Is it to catch sponsor? What is it? What is your view?
No, I think my thinking is that these awards are there to to raise the profile of authors, and also, of course, of books. And as a publisher, I would say one of the reasons is to increase book sales, because that is when authors get royalties.
Yes, and talking about sales, royalties, we have to move towards our Italian friends. This time, I'm the one in charge of allocating the minutes to people. So I give you, Andrea, 5 minutes. If that is enough for you, I would like you to tell us in 5 minutes, what is this Italy Reads Award Pakistan? Why we have come to this idea? Why is it different, if it is, compared to other prizes? And most of all, since there is this mysterious air lingering in the room, I would like you to help us to fill the empty space in this panel.
I will try.
I may give you 6 minutes if you want.
Okay. Italy Reads Pakistan is an award. The idea came together to me with Gianluca Rubagotti. I explained him that we already, as a publishing house, had some similar award in different Asian countries. Metropoli d'Asia is a publishing house focused on fiction from South, Southeast, and East Asia. We have been working since 6 years by now, and twice in Taipei, in Taiwan, and in Indonesia, in Jakarta, we run similar context. The difference between the kind of award that we give and a normal award is that we do not just give a prize in money, but we offer the possibility to the winner to be published in Italy, translated into Italian and published in Italy, opening a door, we hope, for further publications in other countries, European and USA. And well, that's all concerning the award. The process in this case, as we like to do,
yes,
is
if you can say a few words about the process that took 1 year to come here.
Two jointly selection committee or jury. We have a jury in Pakistan and a jury in Italy. The jury in Pakistan was formed by 3 persons. 2 of them are here, 2 writers, H.M. Naqvi and Bina Shah, and an editor and poet from Oxford Publishing House, Salman Quresh. And they have been working on a total of 19 submissions to the Italian consulates, and gave us reading reports on which the Italian jury, formed by 3 editors and translation working in Italy with Metropoli d'Asia, whose names are Gaia Maducci, Monica Martignoni, and Giovanni Garbellini. They had been working with starting with the reports of Pakistani jury and decided the final winner. It's a methodology that we like, to have this interaction between the point of view of Pakistan, of people living in Pakistan, writers living in Pakistan, and editorial people living in Italy.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's not just coming here and dropping one of those empty envelopes on the stage, but it's about bringing the book and all the world which is in and around the book to a foreign country. In this case, a country where, I don't know if it's unfortunately or fortunately, people mostly read in Italian language. So these kind of books, these kind of stories would not be accessible to the vast majority of the Italian public without this such initiatives. Yeah,
yes.
Do we have some drum rolls? No, we don't have. Okay. So.
Well, the winner is The Spinner's Tale by Omar Shahid Hamid.
I'll fill your dissident
Yes,
chair.
please. No.
I don't think we need to worry about him being taken by the state.
Yes, I wanted to
Given
create
that
a little
he
bit of.
represents.
Yeah.
No, not in this. You never know.
never
Yeah,
know.
you never know.
With the luck I've been having at this KLF, I should play the lottery this week.
You're the king of the festival, Omar. What can we say?
Well, this is what I read from the Italian jury. An intense genre novel, an enjoyable thriller, a contemporary piece of literature deeply rooted in the reality of today's Pakistan. Thank you. It's an honor for us to have your novel being translated in Italy and published by my publishing house.
It's an honor for me to be translated by you to be accessible to the Italian reading public. Thank you.
Now, sorry, the most intelligent question. Are you happy? Do you want 2 minutes of our times to say something before we move to the second part of the panel?
Sure. I think,
Where's your mic?
Hussain and can all of you hear me? Yeah.
You don't like.
Hussain and Bina will, I'm sure, agree with me that for any writer, to be able to access new reading publics, people who might look at your book in a very different perspective, is the greatest thing that we aspire to. And to be able to be afforded an opportunity like this, to go to a totally different market like Italy, and to kind of be able to see, hopefully in the future, near future, how people will react to what you've written, is a tremendous honor, and it's really why we get into this business.
Thank you. Since a president of a particular country has won 2 elections stating he would lead from behind, I want to do the same here and moderate from behind, since we have 2 authors on this stage who have been successfully published and read in Italy. I would ask them to ask something to our winner, giving, of course, some guidelines, because even when you lead from behind, you still have to lead someone, no? So, Bina, you know about Italy because you are a bestseller in Italy in Italian language, and of course, you know also about Omar's background. So, what do you think in general of the interaction between the author's personal world and the story which is described in the novel? Keeping in mind the fundamental lesson from Aristotle that in the Poetics, that art is mimesis, it imitates life.
Wow, I feel like I have to write an essay now for university on this subject. Is this something you want me to ask Omar, or you want me to
first
respond?
Your view on this, and then you can interact with our guest on this particular.
It's always a balancing act for the writer to separate the personal from the work, from the professional. And yet, at the same time, you infuse the professional with the personal. So as I say, it's a balancing act. How much of yourself do you reveal in the work? How much of yourself do you keep private and separate from the work? And how much do you do that where it's effective? It's effective because you are putting in personal experience and your own intuitions and your own understandings, perspectives, so on and so forth, into a work. If you put too much of yourself in it, then you give too much away, and you as a writer become too exposed and too vulnerable. If you hold too much back, the work becomes flat. It loses a certain resonance and a certain emotionality which every reader needs in order to connect with the work. And for every author, this is a challenge. For Omar, I think this is even more of a challenge, given that his experience is very dramatic. It's not something that every writer goes through, thank God, but it is something that he went through, and he chose to, I think, address a lot of the questions and a lot of the uncertainties that arose not just from his personal history, but also from his own work. Now, he's chosen to infuse his writing with those experiences. But at the same time, when you read his work, it's a bit of a mystery. He puts a mystery into a mystery. How much of him is in what you're reading? How much of Omar Shahid, the man, is in the tale that you are reading? The tale is, of course, fiction. So where is the actual person himself? Where is what he's seen and been through and experienced? And where is what he's actually making up, because it is fiction? So that's a bit of a mystery that I think every writer puts into a book for the reader to untangle, besides the obvious whodunit or why or whatever of the crime fiction genre. So I think that's kind of an interesting tussle that's going on in Omar's books. I think it's impossible to separate the author from the work at all, as we know with the example of Elena Ferrante from Italy, where everybody became fascinated not just with the work, but who she was as a person. And it almost became It's Italy's national mystery, which people have tried to solve. And so I think that is something unusual to the world of writing, where the reader is actually looking for clues to the writer himself or herself, as well as clues to the story.
Yes, of course, we would have liked to invite Elena Ferranti here, but not knowing
It's
even
me.
if
I'm Elena Ferranti.
Ah, okay, so here we are.
Another mystery solved.
There you go.
So, would you share her perspective on this? Or?
Yeah, I think it's Bina's absolutely right that you, as an author, as a writer, you do take a lot from yourself. But I think at the same time, for instance, when I'm writing, that while I take a lot from my experiences, I still find it very uncomfortable to portray any personal characteristic, because I tend to be a very private person, and it's still a balancing act that I'm trying to figure out as a writer. And you keep maturing in this. But yeah, absolutely, there is that tension between revealing the world that you inhabit. In my case, the world of law enforcement in this country, and making it, putting the spotlight on yourself.
How comfortable do you feel coming to events like these and accepting awards and being very visible? There are many writers like Elena Ferranti who want to disappear, who don't want to be seen as the face of the work. How do you feel about that? The public life that goes with being an award-winning author, for example.
Never really thought about it before
Start
yesterday.
thinking. Now you have to.
I think I haven't, I have never had that sort of problem, and I think partially the reason for that is that in my other job is also very much a public-facing job. So for me, it's not that isn't the problem. I think the bigger problem is figuring out how much of myself I want to reveal in the characters or in the sketches in my books.
That much is very obvious, and being a writer myself, I know what that tension feels like, because people will come up to you and say, "Is this your biography? Which character are you? Which one is this? Which one?"
Yeah.
And people love to figure these things out, and you almost want to be like, "Would you please stop asking me these questions?" The other thing I thought was very interesting, the fact that this book is about crime. Your books are about crime, and I'm wondering, Andrea, whether the Italian public, in your opinion, may find some resonance with that, because there has been so much organized crime in Italy, and it's itself entered into the work of fiction and film and legend and so on. Do you think Italian readers may identify with the crime aspects of Omer's books?
Well, it is not just a crime book. I mean, the characters depicted in the book are so vivid. Yes, they are deeply rooted in Pakistan. They are not Italian, but some part of Pakistan, let's say, political and social scene, is very well known in the West, and to see such a character as the Sheikh, which is depicted in the book, is very interesting to us. The story of the life of this person, from a normal boy, let's say, in a normal school and university, becoming a terrorist, is very interesting to the Italian reader.
Do you think this will humanize that side? I mean, we don't want to humanize terrorism too much. It's not such a good idea. But, do you think that they will change their opinion about Pakistan and the problems that we have by reading this book? Or do you think this book will actually entrench those ideas in their minds?
Well, as every novel, it enables the reader to go beyond cliches and to see that even a terrorist is a person, and it is important to understand his psychology, what is in his mind.
Yeah. Omer's books are deeply psychological. I mean, that's one of the aspects that I enjoy about them, is that the crime fiction genre can be very superficial. But the way Umar handles it, he really takes time to go into the complexity of the natures, the human natures behind the terrible masks and the cruel personalities that I think people put up really in a way to mask their, possibly the horror that they feel themselves at what they're doing. What do you think about that, Umar?
I think, when you're, I always say this, that when you are a police officer, you end up being an amateur psychologist.
Right.
Because you sort of see various people from a cross section of society, and you see them oftentimes at their worst or their lowest moments, and it's a very important skill that you have to develop if you want to be in this profession. And I've always tried in writing the characters that I do in any of my books to use those sorts of the same skills to bring life into those characters, so that those characters should look three-dimensional.
Right.
We have still a silent presence in this panel. So, Mr. Naqvi, what did you like about this book, and what would you like to ask him about this book?
What this prize highlights is that a good story, whether it's set in Karachi or Lagos or Rio de Janeiro, has resonance in different places. So, one of the most popular novels in translation in Pakistan is 100 Years of Solitude, and it's 100 Years of Solitude contends with the politics of Colombia, but it has global resonance. And Umar has not written 100 Years of Solitude yet, but there's a story that is compelling on a human level, and not merely for its anthropological kind of depiction of this city. I'm familiar with the reality of the narrative that he depicts, he renders, in that sort of. I've done some non-fiction, I've done journalistic pieces on that have dealt with the character of Umar Sheikh, who came to prominence because of his role in the Daniel Pearl episode. So I find it interesting that I always find the space between fact and fiction interesting, and Umar is able to fill that gap between, because it's fiction derived from certain realities and a history, and so I found it compelling for a different reason than an Italian reader would find it compelling. I found it compelling because it's a different way of approaching reality. It's not, and reality becomes a very reality is a construct. Reality is something you read in newspapers, and that also is sort of fiction because you can't depict reality on the page. And so, in that sort of philosophical way, I found Umar's work very compelling. I'm curious whether the raw building blocks of your imagination. Well, let me put it this way: I don't have a great imagination. I require reality to create my worlds. Do you have a poor imagination as well?
I think so. I think so. I think it's and especially when writing this book in particular, you are trying to envision the thought processes of a person who is or would be abhorrent to any rational, quote unquote, normal person. And I think it was a very, very tough book to write in that sense, because it takes you, in order to do justice to that, in order to make sure that that is not a caricature, at times I felt when I was writing the book that I had to go down some pretty dark paths in my imagination and in my psyche. So I think I would say that of the 3 books I've written, this has by far been the toughest one.
Interesting. Yeah, I can only imagine. I have sat with you in your office many years ago while I was doing research on my work, and watched, if you remember, you questioning a suspect, and so that sort of ethos, I found, I found that ethos in this book, that kind of gritty ethos, and in Italy, one of the best television programs these days is, if you haven't seen it, it's called Gomorrah, which is about the mafia in Naples. And one can make some sort of connection in that those characters are also exquisitely drawn, human, three-dimensional, not caricatures. So, good job.
Thank you.
We have on the stage 2 authors that have already been translated into Italian and one who is about to be translated. So my question for the 3 of you: what happens in the mind of an author when his or her child is getting into another dimension, especially in a language that you don't know? So you lose control over your creature. Do you?
We talked about this last year. Do you remember when we introduced the prize? And you said, how do you feel about translation? And we both said, how do we know? We don't speak Italian, so they could be writing anything, and we haven't got a clue how good or bad the translation is. It's you trust the editor. You trust the editor who is going to select the translator. You trust the editor because they're the one that is choosing the midwife of your novel, as it were. And you have to think of it as your child being born again, but to possibly a different set of parents. And for me, it wasn't hard. I was so excited by the prospect, as Omar said, of going to a different country. And you as a writer, you don't sit there and look at the map and say, I'd like to be published here today. I want to be published in Japan tomorrow. It's going to be Belize. You don't think that. So when the opportunity comes, you're astonished. You're so surprised that what you write sitting in Karachi could actually capture the imagination or the heart of somebody sitting in Italy. I think it's one of the things that I'm most grateful about as a writer, that I have people, editors, who believe in the universality of the work and the translatability, and I don't just mean by language, but also of theme and of content and character, the translatability of what you write. Because as an author, as a writer, you aspire to write about things that are true for the world. You aspire to write truth, and truth has no language, and truth has no nationality. So you're just so happy that happens. Whoops.
And how long does it take for the whole process to be in place for a translation of a whole novel?
Well, several months for the translation. Let's say 6-7 months for the
6-7 months. So
translations.
I have the solution. What about picking up some Italian language meanwhile, so you can follow the process and make sure that your child remains remains the same.
Absolutely.
Good. That's a commitment
Set
by
up a
the
cultural
author.
center and I'll be there.
Why don't you send over to Italy for 6 months and he can learn Italy immersion method and
Well, if they allow him, which I doubt, but so I think we still have like 20 minutes. Maybe it's time to open to the floor for. I don't know how it works with the microphone.
somebody will pass a mic around.
I think they have.
For the recording, it's important that you get on the mic.
But perhaps I can start.
Sure.
Just a second. Mic le aaye, jaldi se. Because it's being recorded.
Yeah, first of all.
Thank you. So, my question is to the two non-Pakistanis sitting on the stage.
I'm moderating. I'm not.
Why was she pointing at you?
Yes, please.
All
sorry.
right, so we're settled.
Yes.
I totally agree with Mr. Naqvi that reality is a point of view. And the point of view, the Western perception with regard to terrorism is very one-dimensional. It's bad, it's evil, it's inhuman, it's carnage. And that's fine. I don't mean to elevate or soften the impact of terrorism in any way. But do you think Mr. Umar Shahid Hamid's book is going to highlight the tremendous sociological, political, religious, economic, and even environmental factors, often uncontrollable, that formulate a terrorist? Do you think that would happen? Would the West realize how complex it is and evil, but so many factors beyond anyone's control, often?
Yes, H.M. Naqvi mentioned a very famous book and movie and TV serial in Italy, which is Gomorrah.
What's his name?
Saviano,
Saviano.
is the Italian writer.
Yeah.
And Garrone, the Italian film maker. When writing or filmmaking about such a subject, what is very important, in my opinion, is the ethical tension you put in your writing. And the ethical tension leads you to give a picture of a person who is a criminal as a true person, of course, going beyond cliché, but showing that he is a loser. We cannot write a crime novel telling the reader that he is the winner. In this novel, there is in fact some form of a contradiction, and this is, if you don't mind, my question to the author. Of course, when showing the character of the sheikh, you understand he is a loser. He is coming from a social context in which he was a loser, and that is why he becomes such form of a person. There are many happenings in his life in which he loses, and then he becomes this kind of a person. But end of the story, even the police officer who is the protagonist of the book will lose, will be a loser in this novel. Why the losers are on either side of the barricade?
First of all, Andrea, I think Gianluca's not going to buy the book anymore. Why? Because you've given away the ending. I think he was... but I think, in fact, what you say is a question that has been put to me by many Pakistani readers. This issue of how come it wasn't a happier ending. And my response to that has been that because that also imitates what happens in life. Sometimes there aren't happy endings. Sometimes people whom we may consider sociopathic losers, nevertheless still get the upper hand. And that's what makes it more interesting.
So,
Did you
sorry,
hear that?
do we
I
have
did.
any other microphone, please, for the gentleman?
Oh, yeah. Such a nice.
Yeah, my question is for Hussain. You have read some other Pakistani novels as well. So, would you suggest that these other Pakistani writings are or should be translated into Italian? Any other novels that you would suggest this August gathering that these should be translated into Italian?
You know, Urdu literature is somewhat neglected by discourse. From our classics like Qurrat-ul-Ain, Haider Raza Qadariya, Abdullah Husain's, well, yeah, and Vedi generations and contemporary novels like Daira, Asim Bhatt's Daira, and Rafaqat, Saad Rafaqat's written a fine novel. There is a reluctance. There's a reluctance, perhaps because translating from Urdu becomes there may not be an expertise to translate from Urdu, and I think that's a problem that we need to address, because there's this prose, contemporary and classical, that demands attention. And in this prize, I read some really fantastic novels in Urdu, but because of age, because of the rules of the prize, in particular the age limit, this novel was not in contention. So, I mean, it is something that at a forum like this, we do need to wrap our heads around the fact that how do we get Urdu literature the attention it deserves? Because if there wasn't much of it, or it wasn't that great, that'd be something else. I think you said Belize. Binasha, in an offhand comment, invoked Belize. Now, Belize must be a lovely place, but it doesn't have the sort of energy that Urdu literature has. I hope that people like you and I and all of us should think about this and try to figure out a way forward. It bothers me.
Andrea, can you please, I know that you have traveled extensively Asia, and you have your own views on the relationship between Asian literature in English versus in non-English languages. If you want to say a few words as a comment.
First of all, we gave the manuscript by the Urdu writer in reading. We are waiting for reading reports, and we will consider it for further publication.
All right, so then you're solving this in your own way.
Yeah, it will not be so easy to find a good translator from Urdu. This is the big problem in Western country. Anyway, when we have a book originally written in local language, we want to translate from the local language. We never translate from a bridge language, as others do often with Asian writers. Italian publishers translate from English version of the book. We don't want to do that. We go to the Coming back to the issue of local languages, well, I think there is something that Asian countries lose when writing in local languages decline. I know the example of India. India is a country where since, let's say, 20 years ago, there were flourishing important literatures in the 22 or 24 local languages of India, which are maybe spoken by 100 millions of people. And there is obviously an increasing attitude by writers to shift to English, which is the transitional language of the country, and is anyway the possibility to have a reading audience outside the world. But I think you lose something if you forget the local languages.
Amina, would you like to say something about this, given your role?
Well, actually, I just want to, what you were saying about translating from Urdu to Italian and the challenges. At one of the Jaipur Literature Festivals, I heard Jhumpa Lahiri say that, there are so many people who are not writing in their own language because they feel the readership is in English. So although they are much more creative and better in their own language, they're actually writing in English. And the standards are obviously not the same. So that is a challenge. I just want to add that, what you said about prizes and envelopes not being given. I think in this case, later, when the book is published, the author will get some an envelope in the form of royalties. And also for the exploitation of digital rights, I think. So hopefully, there's that prize as well.
Yes, sure. We still have maybe 10 minutes.
I'd just like the authors to comment, since all three of you write in English. Wouldn't you consider English also to be a Pakistani language?
The history of English in the subcontinent goes back almost 250, 300 years. So there's somebody called Deen Muhammad who's writing out of Patna, who was the first, one of the first writers writing in English from the subcontinent. And since then, I think that we have started to, we've owned the language. So, the constitution is in English, for instance. The bureaucratic language is English. And I think with contemporary Pakistani writers, we have now put our imprint on the language. And so in the last 10, 15 years, going back to Zulfikar Ghosh or Sara Suleri and my contemporaries, we have managed to put our own imprint on the language, and I think it's quite kind of exciting. So not only does the language have a history here, as it doesn't in Belize.
You're not going to forget that, are you, Belize? Caribbean literature is very exciting, okay?
I don't think they're appointing you to the Belize Tourism or Cultural Board anytime soon.
Well, my pay as a writer.
Caribbean literature has produced two Nobel Prize winners, including Naipaul and Derek Walcott. So I'm just using Belize as a rhetorical device. So I think there is much to be said for putting our imprint on the language, but I still think that the quality of Urdu literature is very rich. Urdu poetry is very rich, and so there is this disjuncture now between those who read and write in English and those who read and write in Urdu, and it's a post-colonial predicament. In Algeria, there's also this problem. There are people who write in Arabic, and they were colonized by the French, so French has a special place, and so it's not peculiar to us, but it's something we should think about.
I don't know. I don't have this kind of hang up. Why am I writing in English and not Urdu? If you heard me speak Urdu, you would know automatically why I haven't chosen. It wasn't a choice. English was the language that I consider it my first language. I grew up in an English-speaking country. So for me, it's a little strange to feel upset that I'm not writing in Urdu. However, I do agree with the point that we need to hold on to our languages. To that end, I have a project that I want to do one day, which is to translate Shah Abdul Latif from Sindhi into English one day. But at the moment, I'm learning Sindhi so that I can do that at some point in time. Because to me, I think whatever language you speak, your language is your strength. And so you use it to the best of your ability to connect cultures together. And those of us who are comfortable writing in English and those of us who have achieved some measure of success with that, we're very valuable to this country, actually, because we're the ones that are telling the rest of the world what's happening in artistic ways. And I don't think that's any small thing, and I don't think that's something to be demeaned or looked down upon. This is the 7th year of the Literature Festival. 8th year, every year somebody in the audience stands up and says, "Why don't you write in Urdu?" And I'm like, dude, there are so many languages. I could be writing in any language. I could write in Seraiki, I could write in Hindko, I could write in any language. Why don't you just appreciate the fact that there is any writing at all, and then we'll worry about the language later.
So, thank you. I think we have like 2-3 minutes, and the winner takes it all, so you can
have the last word.
You have the last word.
Just to add to your question and the point that both Hussain and Veena made, I think it's also a function, absolutely, as Hussain says, that writing in English is very much a part of the biology of South Asian writers, and it has a long and distinguished history. Also, when we speak of Pakistani writers in more recent times, it's a function of almost, I don't think that for myself or Veena or Hussain or Kamala Shamsi or whoever else, it was particularly a choice in the sense that I don't think that I would be particularly competent because I suppose the sort of generation of writers who have come up in the last maybe 20 years or so have come, perhaps it's a function of class, perhaps it's it's a thing that their first language of education was English. They feel more comfortable in English, and they find that they can articulate themselves much better in English. For instance, personally, the only thing that I can probably write in Urdu is an FIR. That's about as creative as I can get.
That's not easy.
But you ask me to do anything else, and I would be completely incompetent at it.
I think we should own it. We shouldn't have this ambiguous attitude towards English. We should be proud that it's one of our languages.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree completely. Or American in my case.
So, last minute, Amina, the process started. It's going on well. We are almost there. Are you satisfied?
Yes, I'm delighted. And I do feel that actually, of course, we should be writing in whatever language we can, whether it's Hindi or... But, English does have an advantage. Because it's easier to translate in any other language, any European language. And I was just thinking of my aunt, Quratul Ain Haider, who only wrote in Urdu. And, I thought that she was a candidate for the Nobel Prize, but she was never considered because her books... And she had this hang-up. She wouldn't let anybody translate her book. She said, only I can do it, she herself. She never translated them until very late in life. And so she missed out on the English reading public. Very quickly, I want to just ask the authors here that, perhaps you could consider our students and our secondary school children need to read your books. And if you could consider simplifying your books and making them for students. There's a huge market out there. I could sell 100,000 copies if you could do that. Our students need to read good literature. But I don't think that a secondary school student in Pakistan could really comprehend your book. So do consider. I mean, we've published simplified texts of Jane Austen and Thomas Hardy. So why not Bina and Omar and H.M.? So please do consider that.
Okay, and we leave everybody with this consideration. Thank you, all of you, for sharing with us this panel. Thank you to the public. Congratulations again to Omar. And I think we need to leave space for the following panel. Thank you.
God.
This flying mic.